what is this thinking self who is behind the scenes and driving this? And can I actually access that? And I think that this is a mandatory component, like psychological developmental component to the type of personal growth and behavioral change that most people are looking for, because it's ultimately what allows us to have true agency in our lives.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitamin Lab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only, and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to Personalized by Vitamin Lab. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser, and today on the show, I'm speaking with Dr. Node Smith, a naturopathic physician and director of Teal Holistic, a health consulting and wellness services firm that serves an international community. Dr. Node's an expert in behavioral change, and his clinical practice is mainly counseling and life coaching. Dr. Node's clinical focus is finding the underlying causes of disease in a person's life and helping them grow and heal in these areas. Dr. Node has recently published his newest book, The Witness and the Four Behaviors, a kind and honest guide to the art of self-healing, which offers a DIY approach to using introspection and body awareness to heal from physical symptoms as well as stress, trauma, and burnout. Dr. Node sees patients virtually through his website, tealholistic.com. Please enjoy our episode with Dr. Node Smith. Welcome back to Personalized. I'm Dr. David Deiser, and I'm here with Dr. Node Smith. Hello, Node. How are you today?
Hey, David. Doing well. A little bit under the weather, but we're going to push through, and this is going to be an awesome conversation. I've been waiting for a long time.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks for pushing through. I'm grateful to have you on the show. Do as much as you can. If you need to back out, it's okay. I'll understand. So, Node, you're a naturopathic physician working in Canada. Tell me about the journey that you have taken from graduation to this really cool niche practice that you have. What has that been like?
Yeah, I do have a fairly niche practice. I would say probably 80 to 90% of my practice is counseling. I do a lot of trauma work. I do a lot of stress, anxiety, burnout work. And that's really the reason I got into naturopathic medicine to begin with, was the psycho-spiritual, emotional side of things. And naturopathic medicine had the ability to kind of incorporate those things into an actual medical paradigm rather than just being a psychological paradigm. Yeah, so my background is I started attending 12-step recovery groups when I was 19 years old. So most of my adult life has been spent in some form of recovery or another. My whole family's in recovery. So I really gravitate pretty well to working with people who have addictions, who are overwhelmed, burnt out, and who are just really suffering in their lives. Sometimes that's a physical illness that is connected to a mental pathology or psychosomatic illness. But a lot of times it's just the crazy world we live in. It's not really conducive to health.
Mm-hmm. Agree with that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think that what you're doing is so needed. I think about this mental health space all the time. I try to do a little bit if I can in my practice, but I really think naturopaths are set up. I think we have the tools to be a really important piece of the solution here. Tell me about what it's been like in practice in this space. What kind of tools have you been using? What does a holistic approach look like to you?
I mean, that's a great question. And I agree 100% that naturopathic doctors really have a mindset and a model to look at mental health through not only a mental, emotional paradigm, but the actual physical components, the zinc deficiencies, the copper deficiencies, the iron deficiencies. How many times does a patient come in and they've struggled with, fatigue for years and years and years, and you run an iron panel and the ferritin looks all right, but the comprehensive iron panel shows that their, total binding globulin is off, or, some other thing that indicates they're anemic. And that's, one physical supplement that can literally change an entire person's life. And so yeah, I address diet with every single one of my patients. It's a foundation that I'm really strict with my patients about. I hold my patients to a pretty rigid standard when it comes to detoxifying and cleansing. When we first start working together, I take everybody through a 30-day cleanse, and it is supplemented. Normally, we'll supplement with mitochondrial and different cellular factors. I'll address phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways, and then, binder of some sort, pretty typical stuff. And then I'll use an intermittent fasting protocol where they're only eating proteins and vegetables. Sometimes that if somebody comes in and they have gouty symptoms, and I think that they benefit from a more vegetarian or like plant-based approach, like we'll go in that direction. But by and large, my patient population is, they're ranchers, they're farmers, they have access to really good, high quality grass-fed meat up here. And so I try to capitalize on that and make sure they're really pulling all of those rancid seed oils out of their diet. They're eating organic if they can, and then really pushing those healthy meats. And I have a pretty high confidence that I'm going to see remarkable improvement in 2 weeks, if not total resolution of most symptoms in that amount of time. And then the last 2 weeks is pretty much them just gliding on this, a lot of patients just gliding on this high. I have tons of patients who want to continue eating on an intermittent fasting schedule. So we, usually it's not contraindicated. So it's pretty easy to safely recommend that for people. How many patients come to you that don't want to lose 50 pounds, right?
For sure.
But then I tell people right off the bat, like, this is the foundational work that you're going to do in the background while we start working on your trauma, your stress, your anxiety, your ability to communicate with yourself, your ability to communicate with other people in your life. And so then my follow-up appointments become our counseling sessions. And the diet and supplement management, it's all behind the scenes. I don't waste visit time with that. And if I run into elements in a person's care where, they really need some, advanced medicine treatment, like, they need drainage therapy or homeopathy that's beyond my capabilities, or they need herbal remedies, or, what I would call kind of like advanced supplement knowledge, how to manipulate hormones and things like that, I refer them to somebody else.
Good for you. Good for you. I love that. I think there's a huge space for you. Like, to be honest, in the community that I work in, the burnout is rampant. The anxiety is very high. Lots of people experience moderate and severe depression. It's so incredibly common across our entire nation, I believe. I would love to know a little bit more about what drove you to naturopathic medicine. I didn't know this about your history. I didn't know about your family. I'm learning this for the first time. Can you walk me through a little bit from 19 to naturopath, what that was like for you?
Oh, shoot, man. I like kind of tongue in cheek, like to say that I chased a girl to naturopathic school. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Another learning from me here. Another learning session.
It was. My background's in literature. I have my undergraduate degrees in literature, and for anybody out there who's interested in becoming a naturopath, I would strongly suggest getting a degree in something not science.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, not science. So, and I'll circle back to that, but I was all set to go to the University of Chicago and work on my PhD in comparative literature. So, like, I would have been studying ancient Greek, I would have been studying French, I would have been compiling reading lists in postmodernism and all this kind of stuff, which I'm so glad that I did not do that. the way that academia has gone in the last 20 years since I've gotten my undergraduate degree, I'm so glad that I took this route. But yeah, I met this girl and I met her naturopath, and his name is Steve Morris. He practiced, I think his son took over his practice in Mukilteo, Washington, which is close by where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And old timey traditional naturopathic doctor doing all the chiro stuff, homeopathy. Like, I think he learned under John Bastyr. And so that kind of got me into like this idea of, I don't have to be like in the ivory tower, to help people. And I could go into this kind of work. I could learn psychology or, some kind of addendum, field, and really do a lot of positive work in the world. And so I went back to school and got a pre-med degree, and then I got connected with all like our elders in the community. And I did tons of work with elders and kind of connecting elders with students and helping transmit that traditional naturopathic wisdom to the student bodies at the various naturopathic schools. And that was super fun. But the reason why I say that you should get a degree in a non-science,
please, tell me.
In a non-science area of study is that naturopathic medicine is by definition multidisciplinary. And so the more areas of study, the more experience we can draw from in our practice, the more valuable our practice, the more nuanced our medicine becomes. And a second thing that having a degree in the humanities allowed me going through school was I could study and synthesize information extremely well, which is something that science courses and pre-med doesn't exactly teach you how to do, right? It teaches you how to memorize a lot of information, but it doesn't really tell you how to think for yourself. And so that's something that a naturopathic doctor, and as a student especially, like can really become frustrated with. So if you have background in an area that has cultivated that rational analysis, how to read, how to pull out, tidbits and wisdom from, multiple sources and things like that. I mean, it served me very well going through school.
Oh, that's an excellent point. I fully agree with you there. I mean, the more experience you can have on that side of life provides so much value once you're in practice and you're meeting real people and you're having to actually synthesize their case and think holistically about them. You're so right there. I'm in a program right now where I'm trying to learn something completely different. And I feel like if I had have been in this program when I was in my early 20s, like a lot of people who I'm with are, I wouldn't do very well because I just wouldn't have the experience to draw on. I'm grateful for the kind of decade I had as a gap before going into this one with actual real world experience. And the humanities can provide you real world experience because you're learning about other people's journeys, other people's way of expressing themselves and the stories that they want to tell. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. So this has positioned you get in this place where, you can really help support people mentally, emotionally. And I'd love to dive into your work a little more deeply if we could.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we get into a little bit of the internal work? Like what would your kind of naturopathic approach look like to internal work? Say, for example, you're working with someone who's experienced trauma and has a significant mental emotional history you want to support them with. What's the process like?
Yeah. So I'm trained in a technique called somatic experiencing. And it's a body-based trauma processing tool that uses tracking physical sensation in the body to rework trauma patterns. It's incredibly effective, but I have found it super, super useful for, how do I say this? Downloading all kinds of programs into people. So we have this, within the naturopathic profession, we have this kind of ongoing conversation of like, well, you can tell, a patient anything you want and they can go and do it for 2 weeks, but that doesn't mean that they're going to radically change their life, right?
Right.
And that often is because the relationship to that thing doesn't really change, right? And so I have found that the ability to track sensation in the body, it allows patients to couple their cognitive, intellectual thinking about all of these changes, about all of these things that they need to do. And it can couple those with what's actually happening in their body. And so I help people get to a place kind of circuitously where they understand that being healthy is not something that they should do. It's something that they actually want to do.
Yes.
Right. And that's, I mean, I say it and it sounds really trite, and it's trite in an intellectual way. But when you see a patient go from that being an intellectual experience and causing all of this frustration and angst and shame and guilt, and then you work through like using the somatic experiencing model, and you see them come out the other side to this realization that, oh, they actually truly want to be healthy. They want to eat better because they know that it's going to make their body feel better. They want to communicate with their kids better because they actually want peace and harmony in their life. They want to speak to themselves better. And of course, like this is, sometimes it's fast work, but not a lot. It's, it's slow work, over the course of, 6 to 8 sessions, we might run into various obstacles that are keeping people from really transitioning to that understanding. And we'll use that somatic experiencing model to really settle into that obstacle and then really rework it so it's no longer an obstacle.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. So I'm trying to treat this show like continuing education.
Okay.
And every time we have an episode, I want to make sure we leave with something that could impact our practice tomorrow. And today I've learned about a technique I've never heard of before. So thank you for that. It's called somatic
experiencing.
Somatic experiencing. And where could people, say, for example, naturopath or integrative physicians, where could they learn more about this technique?
Yeah, so I think it's called the somatic. It's Peter Levine's work, and he has it's somatic traumahealing.org.
Traumahealing.org. Oh, great domain name. Yeah. Come on. Amazing.
Yeah. And it's a pretty intense training. Like it's got a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level. Like my wife and I both went through it. It was 3 years. And then it has 30 consult hours after the fact. I was just a volunteer for a big training last weekend in Saskatoon. So it's a pretty well-known, successful trauma processing tool. I would definitely recommend it.
Thank you for exposing me. I feel like as naturopathic physicians, we're getting in a position where we're going to be on the forefront of the mental health supportive movement. CCNM announced today the publication of the EASE-JID study showing the benefit of nutrition, specifically omega-3s and anxiety reduction, first of its kind. So exciting, connecting nutrition with the mental emotional body.
Yeah.
Thrilled.
Yeah. And I mean, anyone who has eaten a crappy diet for a couple weeks and then gone back to their normal diet can tell you just how impactful their diet is to their mental health, right?
I've been bringing up a lot on the show this genetic component to this because I haven't been that excited about genes and nutrition very much. I just thought that the science wasn't there. And then I learned about myself and how maybe there were certain items I should be eating more of. And turns out it does make me feel better.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of funny. Are you in that realm at all?
Yeah, we were doing the DNA company testing for people for a little bit. And I was just not happy with kind of the interface with the platform and how long patients were having to wait for testing, how long they were having to wait for results and things like that. So just from a business model standpoint, it didn't really pan out the way we'd hoped. But I certainly like the science and the protocols that are coming out of that space for sure.
Definitely. I'll give you my little business hack then. We use commercial labs. When a lot of people in Canada have done commercial labs and have their raw file, the DNA file, And I use a free service for naturopaths called Pure Genomics. It's free, and so you can see all the SNPs on there. So you just upload. It's a HIPAA compliant portal, and you're able to then use commercial data. So it's educational. This information that you can share from an educational standpoint with the person about the storage of vitamin D, the methylation capacity, and so on, inflammation reduction and things. It's very cool.
Oh, that's very cool.
So I've been really excited about that. But your background is really cool. We first met when I sent in an abstract for the SAND, Saskatchewan Association Naturopathic Conference, I believe.
Yep.
And that's when we first got connected. So you had a role in that organization. Can you tell us a little bit about the roles and the different things you've done with your degree? I know it's really broad. I'd love to hear some of the experiences that you've had.
Oh, yeah. So, as a student, I formed an organization called the Association for Naturopathic Revitalization. And for about 5 years, we ran these experiential outdoor retreats where we brought in elders from, around the country. We'd fly them in. We'd all no electricity, like on this herb farm in Oregon. And we had another retreat in North Bend, Washington, outside of Bastyr, and then we had one in San Diego, California as well. And the whole mission of that was to bring elder wisdom to the students and really connect students and mentors, students and elder naturopathic doctors. So I did that for about 5 years. And it kind of connected me with the whole profession, really. And so NDNR, Razzie Berry, the owner and founder of NDNR, called me up when I was in my last year of school in Portland and asked if I wanted to be the associate editor for NDNR. And so I said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So one thing led to another, and then I was all of a sudden doing their continuing ed. And so I was applying for continuing ed for all these doctors and, making all these courses and stuff. And when COVID hit, everybody kind of went digital. And so I was asked if I wanted to coordinate the SAMP conference digitally with NDNR. And so as my role in NDNR, I facilitated that whole conference, which was cool because, how the associations work. It's 30 people volunteer and 2 people do the work, right?
Yeah.
And so since it was a virtual event, I just told the association right out of the gate, I was like, I don't really need anybody's help for this.
Wow. Nice.
It just made it a lot easier and more streamlined. And it worked out really well. I love putting together conferences and doing experiential events and stuff like that. So
very cool. Well, thanks for your commitment to the profession. That's for sure. When I was a student at Boucher, the NDNR was a huge part of my daily life.
Oh, okay.
So we would keep them on the table, and we have a stack of 50, and everyone would literally read them every single day. It was kind of like your reading material between classes. So I had lots of experience, and when I first reached out to you, I had already seen your name a million times because I had looked through the actual paper so often. Tell me about that organization and what they're doing, what they've done, and what they're doing now in support of the profession.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked because we had a brief 2-year hiatus where we closed down due to some internal financial issues, and then the outcry from the profession was just so great that we ended up getting some financial support to hire a new editorial team. They brought me on. And we're going to relaunch the publication in November.
Wow.
It's going to be a completely digital publication this time around, at least for right now, as we relaunch, which is actually really cool. It's going to allow us to do more stuff maybe have a podcast and, people will be able to access it on an app and all that kind of stuff, which people like. People like the paper copy like you're talking about. It's nostalgic. But, there's also this very real, waste component. So, but yeah, NDNR really, it's the only exclusively naturopathic publication that we have. It's a champion for naturopathic medicine and the roughly 15,000 naturopathic doctors in Canada and the United States. And our mission is to really codify the naturopathic profession through case studies, elder wisdom, clinical pearls, and protocols. And so when you pick up an issue or, digital, like you're flipping through the digital publication now, you are coming face to face with exactly what naturopathic doctors are using to help their patients. Mm-hmm. We go to great lengths to get content from doctors who are having successful cases, and we will continue doing that. I'm super excited about our new editorial team. They're very interactive with the doctors. They really want to know more about naturopathic medicine because they're not NDs. And so the outreach has been really a cool process during the relaunch. And we're expecting to have a lot more regular contributors. I'm putting together a student section this time around. So we're going to have a column dedicated to students. I'm hoping to find a student editor who will contribute a monthly column as a student. So they might not be writing a case study, but they might be addressing different things that are going on as a student at the naturopathic medical schools that, other students would want to be aware of. And then we're going to, reinitiate some scholarship programs for the students and things like that. Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, my role is actually I'm in charge of the advertising and sponsorship. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing.
Vitamin Lab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitamin Lab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, I'm directly connected to CCNM in many ways, including being the chair of the institution. And I know a lot of students listen to this podcast, and I'm interested to know the distribution. Like what will the distribution be like? You mentioned an app. Will it be something they need to download, or will it be present on general browser?
It'll be an app. It'll be an app, and it will be available on a general browser.
Okay. Cool. So like a digital magazine style.
Absolutely. It'll be a digital magazine style. The ad content is going to be really cool. I'm really excited. And because I'm a naturopathic doctor, like I'm really trying to bring ad content that's relevant. And so we're having this conversation. I know that you're a part of a company which is doing super cool things, Vitamin Lab. And, my hope is to have companies who are doing this kind of interesting stuff that have a really strong influence in how the business models are also shaping naturopathic medicine and allow the doctors to really interact with these companies within the publication, with video, with interactive, QR codes or opt-in buttons and all that kind of cool stuff that you can't do in a physical print publication.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great point. Oh, that's cool. That's the future.
It is.
I love that idea. I feel like from your perspective, maybe this would be good feedback. When I was a student, I learned a lot about what companies were making cool products from NDNR.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. How else are we supposed to be exposed other than the products that are in the clinics? And so if you're not familiar with our profession, basically we have this opportunity to support people's nutrient levels, and that could include combining nutrients together, whether it be through a formula that's made or through a custom formula like what Vitamin Lab does. But through discovering all the different formulas that are available out there is really challenging. Knowing what companies do what.
Oh, it's impossible.
NDNR was bringing them to us in the form of advertisement, which I found very valuable.
Oh, yeah. So the hope is to reestablish that. Digital marketing's really changed within the last handful of years because of COVID. So, but, we're hopeful.
It's nice to talk to the profession. I'm working on this software that helps with efficiency and effectiveness in clinical practice. And I strongly believe that efficiency and effectiveness is a strategic competitive advantage. Being really good at what you do and really fast at doing good work. And so I'm currently working on a software that I'd love to have in front of as many people as possible in the future.
Very cool. I agree with that 100%. And yeah, when I talk to people about kind of how my orientation of counseling, I often tell people that I approach counseling from a very doctor perspective. Like there's a goal. And I might not have an accurate timeline on that goal. Like I got to pull back my agenda on that, but there's a goal, right?
Right.
And like we're gonna approach this in the most efficient way possible to get you to that goal and not beat around the bush for. I don't know how much counseling you've had personally in the past, but I mean sometimes it's like a chiropractic model. Sometimes you just go indefinitely.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a counselor, but I've got an executive coach, and we're just going.
Okay,
we're not stopping.
Which is cool. Like if that's what you need and that's what you want, like that's awesome. I definitely have clients that I've seen for years now, and it's just that monthly visit where we do stuff. But there is nothing I love more than telling a patient, hey, like you're good. You don't need to book with me anymore.
Definitely. The way that it works for me is we set goals, and then once we accomplish them, we realize that there's a bunch of other challenges I'm dealing with. Yeah. And so we move on to the next thing. But I fully agree with you. This goal setting and achieving process is so rewarding in our space. Yeah. I want to get to a little bit more about how we get there. I was reading a little bit about your background and the work that you're doing. And part of that is this using skills and techniques, maybe aside from the somatic experience, to help people with inspiration, hope, and clarity. These are 3 words that you use in your writings quite often. I'm interested in skills and techniques that help you achieve this with people, because it can be a huge challenge to help people with inspiration, hope, and also clarity.
Yeah, inspiration, hope, and clarity. Oh, man. That's a really, really hard question for me to answer, because that's kind of just who I am.
Yeah.
That's like who I show, like that's what I show up, like able to facilitate with a patient. And if somebody's open to it and that's like what they want, they're going to get it working with me, and it's going to be really, really fun. And then I actually find that the connecting with the body is the technique that really allows people to feel into what is inspiration. Like, what do I really like in life? I mean, sometimes that's so shut down that we really have to go fishing for it. But it's not a mental process. And I think that that's really important to understand, because, as doctors, even as, psychologists and counselors and therapists, we all go to school for so long. We're so up in our heads. But the types of things that you're asking about now, creativity, inspiration, clarity, hope, these aren't mental abstractions. These are like felt states of being that when they're there. And if you don't know when they're there, well, that's rough. But sensing into what the body is doing in terms of heart rate, can you feel what your heart's doing? Can you feel what your breath is doing? Can you feel any type of opening or tension or softness in your belly or your solar plexus? What's the sensation behind your eyes? A lot of people, when they get into kind of a flow state emotionally, their eyes start to water. It's a sign of connecting with other people, connecting with themselves. And so these are all physical body indicators that I'm having an emotional response. Well, if I have no connection with my body, how do I know that I'm having an inspiring emotional response, or, a surprised emotional response, or I'm angry, or I'm depressed? Like, I just don't know, because for me, it's all a mental thought process.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love how we approach things differently as a profession. For me, it's the same idea as physical, but you may know this about me, but it's more about running and lifting really heavy.
Yeah.
And then you'll get there. and then you'll get there.
It's so funny, David, because that's what I do. I love lifting weights. Like, that's my movement practice. I'm not like a yogi or anything like this.
What you're saying is very meditative, though. I'm almost in a meditative state just listening to you.
Well, and I train all my patients how to meditate. Like, absolutely. I mean, that's, in this day and age, it's a mandatory skill to know how to do.
Okay. So I first of all, love the body connection, because I think people just ignore the breath and ignore the heart rate and forget what I said about fitness, because for so many people, it's not the right thing. And we have to connect in different ways. And it sounds like you've got a great approach, but this other skill, this meditative skill, can be a big challenge for people. And it's incredibly valuable. I actually spoke about it on the last podcast too. And maybe it's just being called into my life again. Can you tell me about what types of meditation or what practices you think would be most valuable for a newbie or someone who just you think really needs this? What's the approach for us?
So, I'm a huge fan of not recreating the wheel. I use Sam Harris's app, the Waking Up app. And usually I can find a 30-day trial for people, like a free 30-day trial. And he has, I think it's a 54-course introduction to meditation.
54?
Well, I mean, they're like short. They're short. They're like, it's like 5 minutes, but it's like a meditation and then like an explanation. And so it really is like 20. It's like 20 different kind of sessions. If you look at it like you're listening to him explain something and then you're doing a like short 5-minute meditation.
Yeah.
But I found that to be a wonderful exploration of what meditation is and especially what meditation is not. So meditation is not relaxation. Meditation is the ability to control one's thoughts, right? It's focus, it's attention. It's all of the things that in our fast-paced digital world, we're literally being like programmed out of, right? Nobody has attention span anymore. I just heard a study that they now say that a goldfish has a longer attention span than a human or something like that.
Oh dear. The sign of the end.
The sign of the end, yeah. So I send people over to that, and then I recommend that people have maintain some type of sitting practice, 10 to 15 minutes a day.
Okay. I love it. Did you ever try the Trip app in VR?
No.
Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to have this whole career of doing VR anxiety reduction or VR panic reduction because there's clinics all across Europe that do this using something called SIOS. It has a different name now, but it used to be called SIOS, PSIOUS. And so I had this thing, virtual reality for phobia reduction. There was actually good research for anxiety reduction in addition to phobia. And so I was using it. No one wanted it. Nobody
Really?
did. Yeah, I just couldn't, I couldn't find a way to make it a core piece of my practice. And so I left, and then we got an Oculus and downloaded the Trip app, which is a meditation app, thinking that I would be able to do anxiety reduction sessions through teaching meditation by using the app in my practice. Nobody wanted it.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody. Yeah. I love it. I think it's so cool. But I think your approach is much more conducive to the populations that we're dealing with who need to have their own private space. Right. Yeah. The quiet setting, the at-home comfort. There's no awkwardness. It's like, here's this app, put it in your ears, follow the steps. Totally.
100%.
I'm interested in this. I'm going to have a peek at the Sam Harris course because I never did it. I saw the Waking Up app come out very similar to the time Headspace was released. And I was doing Insight Timer at the time. Insight Timer was another app. So there was Calm, an Insight Timer, and Headspace, and then the Waking Up.
Yep.
And this was the only one I didn't open. And funny enough, I gave up on the other three, thinking I have solved it. But now maybe after whoever's listening to this show will know that I'm coming way back around to needing a new setup. So you have some good trust and belief in the course, and you think it'd be valuable for most people.
And there's one thing that he does that I don't really see explained in any type of meditation like apps, and that is how to witness the self. like how to explore what is this thinking self who is behind the scenes and driving this, and can I actually access that? And I think that this is a mandatory component, like psychological developmental component to the type of growth, personal growth and behavioral change that most people are looking for, because it's ultimately what allows us to have true agency in our lives.
Right.
And like Ken Wilber, and there's another guy who wrote the Integral Psychology textbook, like talk about how the ability to witness oneself is mandatory for any type of kind of adult maturity. And like, I don't mean adult in like age, but like, you know,
being a human, being a fully formed,
like self-realized person. Yeah. So it's very interesting. I wrote a book called The Witness and the Four Behaviors, which is my attempt at explaining how to use witnessing as a therapeutic technique. It kind of it's like a DIY, like kind of walks patients through like 12 sessions. So, yeah.
I will check it out right away. It really brings up the final question I had for you. It's around, I have a sense that you're going to start with witnessing, given this book, and I can't wait to read it. But I'm interested in your approach to seeing obstacles as opportunities, or helping patients see obstacles as opportunities. Does it start with witnessing yourself? What does it start with?
I mean, absolutely. I would just say that, like, I really just try to help people see, period. Oftentimes people have these ideas that what they need to do or should do or have to do is what's going to heal them. But it's often not the case at all. It's often the framing of the should, have to, need to do this thing in order to be healthy that is the obstacle. And so in just seeing that I am struggling and that is reality, not that I'm struggling to try to do this, or I'm struggling because I can't do this thing, but that literally just in this moment, I'm struggling, and bringing that back into like, what does that feel like in the body? If the body is an antenna, can I learn how to be in relationship with the body in order to inform me what I want? Now, part of this often, yes, is witnessing. It's like, and I walk people through a bit of a longer process than this, but essentially it's, can you see how crazy you are?
Yes.
And it's like, witnessing is a construct of consciousness. It doesn't really change. So people have these really definitive experiences when they witness. And one of those definitive experiences is like kindness and like compassion toward oneself. It's just like seeing yourself as if you're seeing a toddler try to blow up a basketball with a straw. It's hilarious. And you love them, and it brings like a warmth to your heart. And that's how you know you're witnessing.
Right.
Is because you can look at yourself, all of the self-sabotaging, destructive behaviors that we all do. And even in that, when you're witnessing, you can show yourself love and grace and compassion.
Absolutely. I feel like this show is becoming therapy for me. I've got a 5-year-old Node who thinks I'm weird. And my wife says it's because she can't get a grasp on how I'm going to respond to things. And I feel like this approach is appropriate. I feel like this witnessing approach, this getting to know oneself, actually trying to accomplish that feat of being a fully formed human is very timely for me. So yeah. I'm going to check out your book. I learned a lot from you today. Anything else you'd like to add about your process, your practice, the things that you're working on today?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I have the book, The Witness and the Four Behaviors. I'm in Lipton, Saskatchewan.
How can we reach out?
My business is Teal Holistic. Which if you know anything about Ken Wilber and like integral theory, like that's where that like kind of comes from. My practice is very integrally informed. Yeah, it's tealholistic.com. And I'm super easy to find online because my name is so weird. Most of my work that I do is virtual, so I see people all over the world now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll post all the contact information we can for you. Listen, it was so great to chat with you. I learned a lot today, and I'm really grateful you came on the show.
Dude, this was great.
Thanks for joining Personalized, and we'll talk again sometime soon.
All right, cheers.
See you.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitamin Lab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast, and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.